40 summers have passed since the battle that you fought here. You were young the day you took these cliffs. Some of you were hardly more than boys with the deepest joys of life before you. Yet you risked everything here. Why? Why did you do it? We look at you and somehow we know the answer. It was faith and belief. It was loyalty and love. It was the deep knowledge, and pray God we have not lost it, that there is a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. Something else helped the men of D-Day. The rock-hard belief that Providence would have a great hand in the events that would unfold here, that God was an ally in this great cause. These are the things that impelled them. These are the things that shaped the unity of the Allies. Today, as 40 years ago, our armies are here for only one purpose: to protect and defend democracy. We in America have learned bitter lessons from 2 world wars. It is better to be here ready to protect the peace than to take blind shelter across the sea, rushing to respond only after freedom is lost. Here in this place, where the West held together, let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again today. Billy and Karen Vaughn sitting in for Tom Trento, who is in Israel doing great work, and we're really excited. I think we're going to talk to him a little bit later in the show, right?
Yes, we're going to try to bring him up.
Awesome.
If the Skype works, if technology works, we'll try it.
Well, it's always the technology issue. Maybe you want to take it here. We were just thinking when we played that clip, Ronald Reagan, the quotes he made were phenomenal quotes that have lasted for decades now. They've resonated with American patriots for decades, because Ronald Reagan seemed to be possibly the last president we had in this United States who could actually swing the morale of the country toward the joy of American exceptionalism.
Well, he could inspire the country. He could inspire the citizens and our military. But as President Reagan said there, it's been 40 summers since D-Day till the time that he made his speech. We've now been 30 summers since President Reagan made that speech. And in those 30 years, there's been a lot change in our country, and especially in the last 10, 11, 12 years, as our nation has been at war, in a war that our government has refused to call a war, and in a war that most of our citizens have not been involved in. And I think we're at a crossroads in our country today. We're back where we started some 11 years ago because of indecision, or maybe conscious decisions made by this president and his administration not to name this enemy, not to defeat the enemy, not to take the advice of those who were experienced in this. And so it looks like it could be starting all over after spending trillions in treasure and much American blood.
And there's so much controversy right now, and I think that, Billy, don't you think it's because of the division we've seen in this nation? We're experiencing things that we've never witnessed before, inside and outside of our very treasured military. We're seeing things go on that, frankly, are just very disheartening, one of which is kind of the controversy of the day, the Rob O'Neill story, the SEAL Team 6 member who actually took the shot at Osama bin Laden on May 1st, 2011, just over 3 months before our son lost his life in the single largest loss of life in the history of naval special warfare, the single largest one-day loss of life in the now 13 years of this global war on terror. If you guys don't mind, let's just start with that clip of Rob, a little bit of the footage from last night's television show.
Okay.
If you can pull that up.
And for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch it, there was an exclusive interview on Fox News last night. It was actually part 2, interviewing Rob O'Neill. And Mark's pulling it up as we speak.
Yeah.
And the big controversy has been he's taking a lot of heat for releasing information.
Exactly.
Deployment number 11 for me. We went to Miami to dive. We got the call from there that they were calling back a couple of us, not all of us. And other guys from other trips had been recalled. They were all senior guys. And they sat us in a room and they said, hey, we found a thing, and the thing's in a house, and the house is in a bowl, and the bowl's in a country, and you're going to go to that house, and you're going to get a thing, and you're going to bring it back to us. And that was it.
Okay.
We assumed it was Gaddafi because it was the Arab Spring.
You know, I've been battling on social media for the last week people who are stirred up in this controversy, who are people like me who don't have a lot of information on the reality of why Rob is speaking up, why he chose to come forward at this point. I know we heard some clips last night about him saying that it was because after he met with the families of the victims of 9/11 and shared who he was and saw the amount of respect and amount of closure it gave those families to shake the hand of the man who actually killed the mastermind of those 9/11 attacks. He understood that it gave those families a lot of peace, a lot of closure, and he said that that's primarily the reason he came forward and decided to tell his story. So, like I said, on social media this week, I've been personally defending Rob because Billy and I have a very different opinion about Rob coming forward. He is a friend of ours. We've met him. We've shaken his hand. And he is a great American. And Billy, if you just want to take up from here what we've heard people say.
Yeah, can I give a little context here of Karen and Billy Vaughn? Son served in Navy SEAL Team 6, Aaron Vaughn, and he was one of the people who was in that the tragic Extortion 17 disaster.
I've got to stop you there, Mark. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to know how to phrase it.
The criminal.
Right.
The criminal.
Well,
shoot down of Extortion.
The
17.
criminal shoot down of Extortion 17, which the most massive major loss of Navy SEAL life and other support in one operation. And to put into context, you have talked with Rob, extensively about. So you're not just like a everyday person commenting on this. This is what I'm trying to say. You have very in-depth knowledge of Rob and his relationship with the SEALs and why he came out and everything. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Billy, but
No. It's no. I'm sorry to interrupt you about the tragedy
okay.
Well, the thing is, Rob's pretty late. If you think about it, Rob's pretty late to the game about coming out.
Yeah.
The administration came out the next day and outed the Navy SEALs. There's been a movie. Leon Panetta, CIA director, outed the Navy SEALs again. We know that was against protocol. We know it was a breach of national security. Secretary of Defense Robert Gates said as much. There's been various documentaries about SEAL Team 6, Zero Dark 30, and things that have come out about this. Why not the man who was there?
And even Disney.
Disney. Absolutely. Why does the man who was there not have the right to tell the story the way it really happened? Rob, for all practical purposes, we can trust him to tell the true story.
Right.
Knowing that the stories we get from this administration, and I can tell you, the American citizen knows if they pay attention, the revisionist stories that we get from this administration are never true. If they're talking about the weather, climate change, the military, or whatever, they seem to purposely mislead us.
Exactly.
So they can control the dialogue.
We just had a guest yesterday with Jack Cahill, which is he wrote all about the Obama lies and the Obama cover-ups. And with Frank Gaffney, we had a whole bunch of a long hour show talking about each individual from the Obama healthcare onward. And it's just been amazing the amount of different lies that have come about. It really is.
Well, Mark, if I can interrupt you,
Yeah.
one of the funniest things to me when Rob O'Neill came forward and said that he was actually the one who put the bullet in the head of Osama bin Laden, weren't you a little stunned? Because I was pretty confident that it was our president, Barack Obama. As a matter of fact, I had somebody send me a picture of Barack Obama the other day, if you guys have that and can pull it up and show our viewers. And by the way, while you're pulling that up, let's just say a warm hello and thank you to all of the listeners on 740 WSBR,
Right.
all of our Tea Party community, and you can also hear this show on iHeartRadio, so hello to all of you listening on iHeartRadio. And I don't know if you've got that picture, but, so I remember the speech, the next morning after Osama bin Laden had been killed.
It was that evening.
It was that evening, excuse me, that's
Yeah.
right. And you can probably quote
The
it by
engines
now.
the engines weren't even cool on the choppers yet when the commander-in-chief
Barack
came
Obama.
out and told one I after another
Me,
about
me,
I,
I.
me. It's a
And
pathetic
I was-
individual that he is. He is a pathetic, low-down excuse for a human being, and it's a sad day for America that he serves as our commander-in-chief. Nothing could be too bad for what this man deserves done to him for what he has done to this republic.
Yeah, and it's just well, explain to me also, Karen, the controversy that between, because I know 16 Minutes came out, and there's another person. What's his name, Karen?
Matt Bissonnette, Mark Owen came out with No Easy Day last year sometime, I guess it was, and described some of the things that happened in the bin Laden raid, wrote a book about it. He's writing another book now.
I think it was
60 Minutes.
actually late 2012.
Was it? Oh, that long ago. Time flies.
So the big controversy
Because, let me say this, because don't you remember seeing the letter from Admiral McCraven that
yeah,
Catherine
yeah.
Herod showed us
Yeah.
that when Bissonnette was getting ready to come out?
That's right. Catherine was in our home.
And Admiral William McCraven put out a memo that no operators be writing books as he was
Right. Well, that's right.
writing his book.
And you brought up a minute ago too the Zero Dark 30. I don't know if we've got that clip. Don't mean to just be jumping around here, but there's lots of information that goes with this that just kind of supports the whole thing. If people don't remember, Zero Dark 30 was the movie made
Yeah, we have
about
that.
the bin Laden raid. Now, it was okay for Hollywood to talk about it.
That's
It was
because
okay
they were
for-
big campaign contributors.
Exactly. It was
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. It was okay for the money to be dealt around regarding this raid. It was okay for Obama to splash his picture on the front of Newsweek saying that the Navy SEAL Team 6 were his special forces, or however that
trained
read.
them.
Basically like he trained them and went on the raid with them, And so Zero Dark 30, you're running a little clip of that. But, we had this movie come out. And when Billy mentioned a while ago that Leon Panetta actually outed the Navy SEALs, most people are aware by now. This is a very personal story to us. On May 1st, the Navy SEALs killed bin Laden. On
Right.
May 2nd, Joe Biden told the world that the Navy SEAls killed bin Laden. And
and he's
Billy
kind of
said-
half drunk doing
well,
it.
I think I don't know what kind of stupor he lives in, but he seems to always be in some type of stupid stupor. And, he made that announcement, and then within 24 hours of that, everybody had confirmed, the White House had confirmed, the Department of Administration, through leaks, had confirmed that it was in fact SEAL Team 6, put a huge target on the backs of our son, the other men that operated with him, and not only the SEAL Team community, but they also put huge targets on the backs of all the men that the Navy SEALs would work with from that point forward in the theater of war in Afghanistan. Because, we learned that by May 10th, over 100 Pakistani Taliban members had moved into the Tangi River Valley of Afghanistan, where they knew SEAL Team 6 was working with the expressed intent of shooting down a NATO chopper as a retaliatory move for the killing of Osama bin Laden. So, Leon Panetta, back to him, when he came out with his tell-all book, before he came out with his tell-all book, which was fine for him, he also, on May 24th of 2011, after the bin Laden raid, outed the names of the men who ran that raid to Hollywood producers. And if people don't think that stirred up brouhaha in the SEAL community, I'll tell you what. Operators were afraid. They were putting extra deadbolts on their. They were putting. That's what I mean. They were putting extra deadbolts on their wives' doors. They were worried for their children, for their parents, for their siblings.
Let me say this. I already said it. This is what it's all about. This administration, the Department of Defense, any government, federal government organization right now, freaks out when somebody speaks out on their own because they are afraid they're not going to keep control of the dialogue and tell the story they want told. Just like with Benghazi and the video. That's what it's about. When somebody steps out on their own to tell the truth, these people in D.C. freak out.
Especially enlisted people.
Yes, that's right. You're right. I was about to say, and senior military leadership, they freak because they know the guys on the ground.
Don't tell the truth.
They're gonna cut through the chase and tell the truth
And
if it's good or bad.
For the truth to come out, just like with our story. And I mean, backing up to the leaking of that Bin Laden raid, you know, within 24 hours of Joe Biden leaking that it was SEAL Team 6 who ran that raid, or that it was Navy SEALs, excuse me. Aaron called home, and I've told our listeners here before this story, but Aaron actually called home and said, "Mom, you need to wipe your social media clean. I mean, you need to get every single thing off of it that has any reference to me or any of my buddies." And I just said, "Of course, son. You know, why? What's going on?" And he said, "Mom, he'd made it clear because of what happened with Joe Biden, he said, there's chatter, and Mom, your life is in danger. My life in sunny South Florida was in danger because of what our vice president had chosen to do." And, you know, like Billy said, Robert Gates came out later and told the nation through a video he made it. Where was he when he was speaking? At Camp Lejeune. That, you know, it was not, he made it clear it was not okay. He came out and said we had agreed in the Situation Room that none of this would be spoken of. You know, clearly this was a top security national secret. And he said within 24 hours that all fell apart. And so, Billy, you know, you and I have talked about this, but I would say that was the beginning of the breakdown or not the breakdown, but the chaos that is beginning to see itself, to flesh itself out in the SEAL team community that we're witnessing.
Let's back up one further. The Alabama mayor's rescue from the Somali pirates.
Right.
When the Obama administration came out, and here again told the story, they wanted it the way they wanted it told. I believe that was the beginning, and it has moved forward since then. One thing after another, this administration telling the story the way they want it told.
So, you know, this division, like I said earlier, when I was on social media this week defending Rob, I heard a lot of different comments, but one that meant the most to me was the wife of a man from the community. She's lived in the SEAL team community, and she actually said it's really been disheartening to her to hear other Navy SEALs come out and speak so forcibly against Rob. Because let's just back up and talk about this for a second. Rob O'Neill served for 17 years. He served for 12 of the years we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. This man, as he said, did he say that was his 11th deployment?
Yeah.
Over 400 missions, 3 movies have been made about raids that Rob O'Neill took place in the operation. You know, the Alabama Maersk, like Billy said, we watched that. What was the name of that movie? Captain Phillips. Captain Phillips. The story of Lone Survivor. Rob was in on bringing Marcus Luttrell home in Operation Red Wings in 2005. And then, of course, we saw Zero Dark 30. You know, so Rob is a man who I would dare any American across this nation, I would dare you to speak ill of a man who's done so much for our nation. I get very upset about this. And I remember our son, you know, one time when he was home, somebody in the family made not even a derogatory comment. It was just a lighthearted comment that wasn't 100% positive toward one of his teammates. And he literally just stopped the conversation. It was like, don't you dare talk about my brother. That's the way that community has functioned. But now we are seeing that type of brotherhood disintegrate before our eyes, and it is a tragedy. It's a national tragedy to watch this happen.
There's a struggle all throughout our military, though, just as it is in the citizenry of this republic, because of what this administration and Washington, D.C., both left and right, are allowing to happen. And I, for one, I'm not going to come out. I don't have the inside information, and I'm not going to come out against the men who don't want to speak. I'm not going to come out against the men who do want to speak. They know what's going on. They can see how well the ship is still afloat within their community. So to see people who know nothing about them get on their blogs or talk about their, you know, the things that the SEALs are doing. These people are just way out of line by talking about these men who have risked all in such a way.
Well, I have a question for you too. Whoever wants to pick it up, is the big controversy right now between like the two SEALs, who's one on 60 Minutes and one on Fox last night? Is it about who shot bin Laden? Is that the big major controversy right now, or am I completely off base on that one?
I don't think it's about that. I think it's about speaking out publicly. That's what I think it's about. I don't know that there is a conflict between
like the
this
media's
and Rob O'Neill.
It seems like the media is trying to hype up some type of controversy about, this is just an argument in the SEAL community on who shot bin Laden.
No,
it's
I
not.
don't see that at all.
Remember, the left and the media would love to tear that community apart because it is an honored community among American citizens, as the rest of our military is. So the left would love to split it right down the middle if they could.
Okay.
And what's so sad about that is by splitting that, you are, or by attempting to split that, you are devastating the most powerful force America has at its fingertips for a drop of the moment operation. You know, Aaron, these men have go bags. They may be called anywhere on this globe at any given moment. There were periods of time where Aaron was not allowed to travel more than, was it 50 or 100 miles from his home because, he had to be ready to go. And so we're talking about fooling with this premier assault force, and it's not something to be fooled with. It's a very dangerous thing to do, and especially for the sake of information. And so this is something really hard for Billy and I to watch unfold right now. We're really struggling watching this breakdown.
Yeah, I look at this whole controversy that's being drummed up, as far as the media is concerned. And I think you had the most excellent point is, Billy, they really do not like the SEAL community or like the whole, even the thought process of the SEAL community. Do you think that's the core essence of why they keep trying to drum up all this faux, go ahead, Billy.
I do. It's kind of strange. They keep on digging. They keep on gigging. They keep on gouging at the SEAL community. And when President Bush was president, if you remember, the left actually called SEAL Team 6 Cheney's hit squad.
Right.
But let me just say this. I'm going to step out on a limb here as an outsider, but as an American citizen. This SEAL team has been so politicized by this administration, by making them public, by making movies about them, by telling what's going on, by even compromising their operational security, as they did in the Bergdahl rescue, as they did, when they announced that their special operators went after the gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, who was beheaded, the journalist.
The
first one.
Foley.
Yes,
Foley.
Mr. Foley. Remember the administration came out and told operational security functions, about a raid about a rescue attempt. They have made, this is sad to say, but in a lot of ways, they have made the SEAL team and our special operators a political arm of this administration, and that should never happen. And it has changed under President Barack Obama and his relationship with Admiral William McRaven. Admiral McRaven practically made that very clear in our home when he talked about the relationship that he had with President Barack Obama. And by doing so, as a man, he cannot help but have his political leanings or his political persuasions or political pressure put on him by his boss, the Commander-in-Chief, and transferring it to the operators who risk their lives on the front line. And it's a sad, sad day for America that this has been able to happen through a Commander-in-Chief and a high-ranking military officer. And I'll say it again, out on a limb here, this administration and the DOD has politicized our elite military forces.
And they're getting them killed, unfortunately. Billy, we had a one-star explain this principle to us of what was happening with Bill McRaven and Barack Obama. I'm having serious technical difficulties here with this earpiece.
Oh, go ahead and take it out. Just take it out.
Okay.
Karen. Just take
All
it
right,
out,
I don't need it. We had this one star sat down and explained to us that right now there's a stovepipe, and there was no better example of that than the Bergdahl exchange for the 5 terrorists, which don't even get Billy and I started on that and how much of a kick in the gut that was, since our son had actively sought after probably some of those terrorists that were released, men that he risked his life to capture, and then
If not him, many others.
Many others did, definitely. If not him, many others did. And then, to watch our president slip behind Congress, slip behind all of the generals, slip behind all of the stages that we have in place to protect this nation from something like that happen, and go straight to Bill McRaven, who we believe that's exactly how this had to run down, who went straight to SEAL Team 6, and they were absolutely able to bypass all of that and make that exchange. That's not the way we're supposed to be set up in this nation. There used to be the filter Billy was talking about, that layer, where special operations, the commander of special operations was under this layer that operated
protected from the politics.
Right, operated between...
Protected from the agenda.
Exactly, protected from the political agenda. That's exactly right. And now there is a stovepipe from Barack Obama straight to SEAL Team 6 in particular, and it's not healthy.
McRaven is retired, but at the time he was active. But,
and now
but
it'll be
still,
General Votel, and the same principle will apply. Whatever the political... And just to talk about the political persuasions and how important this is when you talk about this stovepipe and what this means to our nation... Bill McRaven sat in our house, as Billy said, in January of 2013, and he literally said to us, Billy, when he walked in the house, he said, this is not going to be political, and we just said, of course not. He came in to discuss the death of our son. As Mark said earlier, and as we've described, our son was killed in the largest loss of life in the history of naval special warfare. Lots of questions have surrounded that. We actually wrote a book. Billy authored a book called Betrayed, The Shocking True Story of Extortion 17, as told by a Navy SEAL's father. Well, as we began speaking out about what we were uncovering regarding the way this administration is operating with our military and how many deaths and wounded in action it's causing, Bill McRaven decided to pay us a visit to, I'm not sure what his motives were, but when he walked in the door, like I said, he said, no, this is not going to be political, and we said, of course not. And then we could not get him to stop politicizing the conversation. The man could not stop singing the praises of Barack Hussein Obama. He couldn't do it. And the most incredible exchange that took place that day was when Billy said, I'm afraid my son's life, you want to tell that story, is going to be lost in vain. And Bill McRaven said, well, Barack Obama got us out of Afghanistan.
He's getting us.
He's getting us out of Afghanistan, excuse me. And Billy said, yeah, but at what cost? Remember, this was almost 2 years ago now. And he said, yeah, but at what cost? And he said, well, he got us out of Iraq like a child on a school ground, supporting his favorite friend.
Now?
Right.
how'd that work
Well,
out?
yeah, let's talk about that in a minute. But his argument was, well, he got us out of Iraq, and Billy said, yeah, but at what cost? And what he said next was the most remarkable words I've ever heard from a man of his stature. He was the United States Joint Special Operations Commander, and this is what he said when Billy said, yeah, but at what cost? He said, well, George Bush got us into that war.
Oh,
my
really?
gosh.
That was the best he could come up with.
That's what he came up with, and it sounded like a liberal leftist agenda, and he's
Talk show
spewing
host.
like a talk show host that was childish and immature and ludicrously off base. And this is our United States Joint Special Operations Commander at the time.
Well, we were just
This is how political this stovepipe is.
Well, and we were just up in Boston, and we were speaking with General McInerney and General Jerry Boykin, head of Delta Force, original founding member, and he goes, we're going General Boykin, General McInerney. General McInerney, his whole family is like 4-star and 3-star generals. I mean, the guy is just the whole legacy of, so they know the general command structure. They know the general officers. And my father was a colonel in the Army, so we were familiar with general officers too. And back when I grew up, you just didn't say anything bad about general officers, especially if you're a colonel 06 and above. You never said anything bad. Even in retirement, you very rarely say anything bad about them. Well, I'm asking the generals, I go, what is going up? And they said this publicly too. And they say the command structure of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, you name it, has become so politicized. Mm-hmm. He goes, it is way beyond anything I've ever thought about it seeing, or I've ever seen it happening before in my career or lifetime. He goes, and it's disgusting. It makes me sick. It makes me want to go vomit. And to the point where General McInerney has come out, who's the former assistant chief of staff for the Air Force, to the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Air Force, said that the command generals should be tried for treason. Imagine a 3-star general saying other generals should be tried for treason, for dereliction of duty across the board.
Because noble men get this. Noble men get what's happening. And they're having to speak out.
So
it's unprecedented.
Yeah, it's just not, us little wingnuts down here at the bottom, like Mark Campbell down here saying this. I'm saying this is coming from authoritative sources, and this is what you're repeating too, Karen, hearing it from the ground up and from the top down.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're in a heck of a mess. We really are. And you know what Billy always says, we travel around the country speaking about what happened to our son, but also, our message is not just about what happened on the shoot down of Extortion 17, because we believe that the shoot down of Extortion 17 was a symptom of a much larger problem. When we first started looking into what was happening inside our military, these things that you're talking about, Mark, these treasonous acts of betrayal, we started seeing these things, uncovering them, and as we began learning about them, Billy and I, we hit a crossroads, really. I mean, I remember it was a pivotal juncture. We sat in our house after Bill McRaven left our house that day in January, and we literally sat there for 3 days, I believe, without taking phone calls.
Friday afternoon till Monday morning.
Yeah, without communicating with anybody, because we looked at each other and we said, man, we've got a big decision to make right now. And that decision was, do we expose what's going on in America's military? Because see, up to that point, we thought it was an administration issue. We didn't know that our military was in bed or that some of our senior military leaders were in bed with the Obama administration. When we learned that, we had this decision to come to, this pivotal moment where we would either go on or we would quit, because we didn't want to hurt the military. We love our military. So it was a complex situation for us, but Billy finally worded it best. He said, look, Karen, if somebody we loved had cancer, we would remove the tumor because we love them. Yeah. And for me, that was all I needed to hear. You're right, Billy. And that's the message we've taken to America for the last 2 years, is we have to remove this tumor of this wicked political leadership that is getting our sons and daughters killed in what is now the longest war America has ever fought.
Right.
And there he is, Bill McRaven, And I want people to know too, Billy and I will both tell you this, don't be fooled by this man when he comes on the political platform, because there are rumors that he is going to be possibly running as Hillary Clinton's running mate. And people are going to flock to him, and they're going to think this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And it's not. You need to beware of this man and his political agenda.
I saw him do a commencement speech.
Right.
And I believe, was it University of Texas?
It was.
Yes,
in
where he is now
graduating
chancellor.
class? And I spent an entire night into the morning hours editing and going over this man's disgusting, despicable, hypocritical words This man, for a guy who was a Navy SEAL and to have the position of power that he did, to be such a political patsy as opposed to a dedicated military man, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Absolute volumes about what has happened to this military. It's not a fighting machine anymore. It's a fighting at the polls machine.
Damon, this man, people need to understand who this man is. This man is a man who took 2 sheep to a man's home and sacrificed him
in Afghanistan.
And sacrificed them and as an apology from America for his children being casualties of the war there. And you know what? Nobody's even sure that those children were actually casualties. But Bill McRaven, his whole Winning Hearts and Minds campaign that he's slaughtered our sons and daughters with, went and actually apologized to this family by offering them 2 sheep on behalf of America. That wasn't on behalf of me. You know, my son was slaughtered in Afghanistan. Nobody's offered me any sheep. Have they brought any sheep to your door, Billy?
Well, I have a question for Billy, and this is something I always found really shocking. And this doesn't just, we're not just talking about how this affects the military attitude in general and people who have served in the military, their attitudes in general, because we want our military obviously to be the best fighting force it could possibly be. However, when I talk to SEALs nowadays, in my personal experience, and tell me, Billy, what you see with this, I ask them this simple question. I say, would you tell anybody to join the Navy SEAL program right now? And almost across the board, they say, no, I would tell them to stay out because of, well, have you heard that same thing, Billy?
This is what I can tell you. Our best are getting out. Many of them, Rangers and Navy SEALs, are getting out because there is a compromise of confidence between the warfighter on the ground and senior military leadership. It's there everywhere, and it's really sad to say what I just heard you say, but that word is out there everywhere, and with what we know, we were proud as we could be for Aaron when he volunteered. We were proud as we could be every breath he drew while he was in the military. But knowing what we know, knowing who we're led by, knowing some of what their agenda is, if my son were to come to me today, I'd have to try to talk, I would try my best to talk him out of serving under this commander-in-chief and under this senior military leadership and under these rules of engagement. I just would. And how long? We've had a volunteer military now for, the draft was stopped right before I graduated from high school. We've had a voluntary military ever since then. How long will men and women volunteer to go and serve this republic and fight an enemy over there because they love what's behind them more than they hate what's in front of them? How long will they do that when they know this government doesn't have their back? And I just got to say, look at the slap in the face that is taking place today to American citizens and more especially American military families. After we've spent much blood and treasure in Iraq, it's just like Obama has pushed it down our throat again and said, you're going to like it. What we've done over there was wasted. We have to do it again. As if that's not enough to push on military families, now he has brought the jihadist battle inside our borders, so that we have terrorist attacks inside our borders, and so that we have military families threatened inside our borders, and so that we have a commander-in-chief who does not stand up, a Department of Defense secretary, or any senior military leaders who will not stand up and say, we are going to defend these military families here at home. Instead, we get bulletins from our armed forces saying, military families, keep your heads down. Don't have bumper.
Call
Don't
your
have
local
your
police if you see anything
don't
suspicious.
don't have your bumper stickers on your cars. You know, don't speak out because you're threatened here in your homeland by people who don't believe in the freedoms we believe in. These are pathetic, low-down leaders that we have in Washington now, because here is another slap in the face of to the military families, after many have given all, and all have given some. I mean, how much more can America take from these people in Washington, D.C.?
You know, if you're listening to us on the radio, if your drive is 445 right now, 740 WSBR, saying hello to the Tea Party community and also to any of our listeners on iHeartRadio. Billy and Karen Vaughn here, Gold Star parents of Navy SEAL Aaron Vaughn, who was killed August 6, 2011. You know, one thing that I'd like to go back to really quickly is, you know, what we started our show talking about, Rob O'Neill, whether or not he should have come forward, whether or not these Navy SEALs who are getting out now should be talking. And I want to make one brief point if I can, and that's this. If there were anybody in this world that I would want my grandchildren to read about, to know about, to understand the mentality of, to understand the character of, to understand the passion of, it would be a man like Rob O'Neill. So I say write the books. You know, I remember when Lone Survivor came out, and Aaron was alive then, and he and Marcus were friends, and Marcus Luttrell, who wrote the book, and he was friends with some of the other guys who died that day. And I remember Aaron saying to me, every American needs to read this book, Mom. Everybody needs to know who these men are and what they're doing, because here's another aspect of it, you know. He came home, when he would come home from deployment, sometimes it was 2 or 3 days before he acted like himself. He'd be distant, kind of quiet, kind of sitting off to himself a lot. Then finally he would engage again. And one time I asked him, you know, son, what is it that goes through your mind when you come home from Afghanistan or Iraq? What are you thinking? And he said, Mom, you know, for the first few days, and these are his words, I'm just pretty pissed. And I said, you know, explain that to me. What do you mean? And he said, Mom, I'm just really upset when I look around this nation. I see so many people here living their lives like nothing is being sacrificed on their behalf in order to provide these freedoms for them. And I remember when he said that to me, it just was like a knife in my chest, because even I was guilty of that. You know, our nation doesn't understand what a real hero is. And so if Rob O'Neill wants to come forward, if Matt Bissonnette wants to come forward, and here's the other thing. People always have this argument about, you know, SEALs are supposed to be silent professionals. Well, that's true. Their ethos is to remain silent while they're a teammate. Well, and while it may be a cultural thing for them to remain silent afterwards, after they've done 17 years for this nation, I say they have the right to speak any words they want to speak in any forum they choose to speak it in. And like I said, I want these men to be America's role models. America needs men like these to step out of the shadows and show us what a real man looks like, what a real hero looks like.
Well, here's the real hero the administration keeps wanting to give us, you know, Bo Bergdahl.
Right, the traitor. I mean, forgive me, he's a traitor. Everybody knows it.
But this is the to put it to that level, from Bo Bergdahl to the Navy SEALs. Bo Bergdahl is one that's touted, you know, as the one who's the hero.
Served with honor and distinction.
Honor and distinction. And we have his family to the White House.
Let me say this. You heard Rob O'Neill say about his 11 deployments.
Right.
What do you think in 2002 and 2003 and 2004? If people have the courage to look back at history, we know what Rob O'Neill was doing. What was our commander-in-chief doing during those years?
Smoking some dope.
Let's look at history, and then let's judge Rob O'Neill by the leader of the free world and compare their two characters. Or if you don't want to look at, if you know the answer to the so-called leader of the free world, let's don't judge him. Let's look at those he's surrounded himself with. Yeah. James Clapper, John Kerry, Joe Biden,
Hillary
John Bremer, Valerie Jarrett, Mrs. What difference does it make now anyway? Point, yeah. Hillary Clinton. Let's look at the people. Let's look at the character of,
Eric Holder.
Eric Holder. Let's look at the character of those people and how much they love this republic and how much security they give to the citizens of this republic. And then if we must judge Rob O'Neill, then let's judge him by them.
Yeah, a very, very, very good point. You know, but we've only got about 10 minutes left here. And one thing I wanted to touch on, you know, since this is Veterans Day week, you know, we celebrated Veterans Day. And Veterans Day, unlike Memorial Day, is a celebratory day. Billy and I, you know, love our veterans. We love every man and woman who's ever served this nation. Our hearts are loaded with honor, respect, and gratitude. But you know, one thing I want to point out is, you know, Billy and I talk about these things at home, but do you realize that in these 13 years of the global war on terror, at any given point during those 13 years, less than 0.5% of our nation has served this country in uniform.
Really? I didn't know that.
Never in the history of our country have so few been responsible for the welfare, protection, and defense of so many. The freedom of so many.
I'm sorry, what percentage did you say?
0.5% at any given point
have
have
actually
served this country during these 13 years of war on terror. And you know what? And here's a remarkable thing. When Billy and I, we get kind of frustrated about this, and this is in no way to take away from those who fought in wars past. Every time I speak, I work with Concerned Veterans for America, and we speak all over the country, and these words always come out of my mouth. I ask those men and women to stand, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I say, you are the reason we were able to raise our children in freedom. You're the reason. You're the people who gave us the values, who secured the values that allowed us to teach our children what America really was, what its value really was. But here's the thing. On Veterans Day, it's like the veterans of this war don't exist. This has been the most silenced war, the most put out of our vision war
Good point.
that I'm ever been aware of. And we, you know, there are 22 million veterans in this nation right now, 22 million. And I would venture to say, I don't know what percentage of those are from this war, but we completely overlook them. You know, we see images, it's always World War II, and those images move my heart. Every event I go to that's about Veterans Day, every year, you know, we're singing the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. We're singing the songs from the 40s, the 50s, you know, and we're ignoring the fact that these men in this culture have fought, and women, excuse me, in an all-volunteer military for the longest war in the history of our nation. So let's not forget the ones serving right now, the ones who have fought in this battle, the global war on terror. And I don't know if you've got anything to add, but I got a couple more things I want to say. So you know, over 50,000 men and women have come back to our shores from this war, wounded in action, forever changed. And we've met dozens of them, and I've maybe met 100 or more. And you know, here's the thing. They didn't come back with just bullet wounds or something like that, which I would never consider to be simple. But these men and women came back limbless. They came back burned, disfigured, traumatic brain injuries, because the primary injury that takes place over there is from improvised explosive devices. They're blown up, and they come back with PTSD. We've got, you know, 50,000 plus of them have returned to our shores like that. And every single one of them that I've ever asked, would you do it again given the chance, have told me absolutely yes. We've had almost 7,000 sons and daughters now return to our shores under a flag-draped coffin, as our son did. And I've never met a family to date, not one, that if you ask them the question, would your son or daughter have done it again, that their answer, their response is not an unequivocal, absolute yes. They would have done it again. And here's why. Because like Ronald Reagan said, our sons and daughters and our nation, the ones of us who really get this dream called America, they understand that some things, like Ronald Reagan said, are worth dying for, that a representative republic is the most noble form of government ever devised by man. And if we don't protect it, if we don't defend it, if we don't maintain its sanctity, then yes, one day we'll spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like to live in America when men were free. And this is something that's almost in our line of sight right now, don't you think, Billy? This image of America where men are not free. We're nearly there.
I agree.
We're at a tipping point.
It's a somber time in our country. You know, and I've said too, you know, when I talk about America and its value to me, I've said many times that, you know, I believe the goodness of America is still there. And Aaron, you know, when he would talk to me about those moments, you know, of discouragement when he'd come home, you know, I remember in particular, he pointed out, you know, men walking around with their pants hung below their rear ends. It just offended him. It was just so bothersome to him to see that, or girls who just didn't seem to have any integrity about their appearance or their clothing, and he just felt like what really troubled him was so much is being sacrificed to give you this freedom, and you're taking this freedom and saying it means nothing to you. You're throwing your thumb up in the face of it, and it was frustrating to him. But you know what he always said at the end of that? The resolution to those conversations would always be that, hey, that's why I do what I do, so that people in America will have the right to be anything they want to be, and he would usually add, even if they want to be an idiot. And that's who we are. You know, that's who we are. And if you don't believe that America's beautiful, if you don't believe America's still the last best hope, the greatest treasure on earth, then I challenge you, drive around to a park this Saturday and look at some families sitting out there picnicking, playing with their kids, and you'll see why she's beautiful. Or buy a ticket to a Friday night football game and go sit in the stands, and you tell me America's not beautiful, that our traditions, our heritage aren't beautiful. Or you drive by the parking lot of any church across this country and you see people freely assembling to worship any God they choose to worship, or assembling themselves for any other purpose, and you'll see that freedom is still here, it's still rich, and we must maintain this freedom that we've been given by the lives of so many. Who've got 1.3 million men and women have offered their last breath to fan the flames of freedom.
Let me say one thing. Yes, Americans, you have it right to be an idiot. You have the freedom to be an idiot. But remember, there are a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that are counting on you being an idiot so they can push their agenda.
Well, and that was made very clear by one Mr. John Gruber, that they rely upon our stupidity and idiocy.
That's right.
I think in fact, video of him now with that, right?
Yeah, there was a great piece John Kerry did last year, and he was in a foreign country, and saying, in America, you have a right to be stupid. And boy, does he exercise that right.
That's right. And that's true.
So true.
And I just want to, thank you guys. We're getting ready to wrap up the show here, and I just want to thank you guys for stopping by and filling in for Tom. And what great, guests to have like yourselves. I mean, we've had nothing but a stunning guest come in for the show, from Peter Feynman, from Frank Gaffney, to yourselves, to amazing Jack Cashill, just amazing people. And I know, and I'm saying this for the radio listening audience, I know a lot of them feel the same way I do, is we thank you as the parents of a person, a Gold Star parents. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your son's sacrifice and loss, and all our hearts go out to you, and and just listen to what they have to say from the family's perspective, the ones from the inside, the ones who know. You must listen to these people because they know what's going on.
In fact, not only should you listen, you should go buy the book Betrayed.
That's right. There you
by
go.
Billy
Absolutely.
Vaughn.
There you go.
Please, it's a must read. This is a book that Billy wrote with some help from someone who writes a little better than Billy, but it is all absolutely real, and it'll make you cry, and it'll make you scream with rage, and you'll be so pissed at this government and the cover-up after cover-up.
That's a wonderful book.
This wasn't just one cover-up, this Extortion 17, and I know Billy started the show by saying it wasn't a tragic accident.
And I'm sorry,
Billy. This was
Billy.
criminal. And that's how we're going to end this. Extortion 17 was a criminal act by a criminal...
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, a criminal act by a criminal administration. And that's how I'm going to leave it. Buy the book, Betrayed, Billy Vaughn.
There's more coming.
Oh, there's more coming.
There's more information coming, yes, absolutely. And thank y'all for having us. And all those people you mentioned, they are great people, but I've got the greatest co-host.
Yeah, you do. You get the winning prize there, Billy.
I know.
That's for sure.
That was good.
managed
That was really good. We celebrated 34 years this week.
Billy-
34 years.
Some of them longer than others.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Wouldn't trade him.
That's another show. Thank you very much, Billy and Karen Vaughn.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.